Okay, I got a notification.
Yeah, okay.
I got a notification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see if I can post this on IIPGH. Do you have direct do you have your WhatsApp on IIPGH open that we can share just in case any one of those guys want to join?
Yeah, I dropped it there, but if you have the link, you can just drop it on WhatsApp and let me do it. I'm just doing that from my phone.
Let me do this from, actually, you know what? Let me see if I can find it and then share it.
There's somebody on. There's somebody standing by.
Okay, all right. Let me. Oops. Really more people.
More people. Let them in.
Yeah.
I think Apu Sabian also has the. He's also on standby to be added.
I'm not seeing. No, they are all in.
Yeah, I've been added. Thank you.
Oh, right. Okay. Fine. Sorry. I think maybe we can give ourselves some 5 more minutes to connect. Yeah, but Anyway, since it's a community, I don't think it's out of place to have a conversation. So, what has the squad?
Exactly.
What has the squad been up to?
I was going to say, what happened to us, man? Like, we're sitting down there, like, we're waiting for a bus or something, like, we're not saying anything.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm coming to GH.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. December show. Right. Yeah. And I saw that Abu has been invited to some events. Yo, you mind telling us what's up? You're all over the place, man.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, bro. So it's a national cybersecurity summit for AI and cloud.
Okay.
So we are invited to just share our knowledge or the little we also know regarding what's the name, AI and then cloud security.
Yeah. And this is happening in India?
Yeah, it's happening in India.
Amazing. Charlie, kudos.
Thank you.
Kudos, man. Who else on the call? Yeah, Robert. Okay, I see Charles Quay too. Oga Charles. What's up? And not behind his seat. Okay.
Yeah, Charles is where? Where is Charles? Charles is where, in Kenya or Rwanda, right?
I think he's in Rwanda.
Yeah. Charles, you're on mute. If you're saying something, we can hear you. Yeah.
All right. And then Patrick, who I'm going to do this thing with, has also been there putting some patches together. Dude has been developing his own, detection tools. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, but Microsoft messed me up. One of my this one taking I'll be using all this. But I just updated my Windows, and then the Windows Defender started detecting it, man. Yeah, but we have other techniques there, so it's not a problem. I mean, we all know this evasion kind of stuff, cat and mouse game. So
yeah.
I like that truth. That's something I like about AFRICAHACKON. The truth. Nobody's going to hide anything from here. That's true. I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty much from knowledge to behavior, So if the detection is picked up, then it becomes knowledge. It goes back to the detection threshold. Yeah. So that makes sense.
I did, and that thing is like for real. I did, if you guys recall, I did this I think 7-hour, 8-hour video on Red Team for beginners, right? And this is one of my stories, behind the scenes stories. So of course, anyone who has developed content for some of these things understand the number of times you have to keep doing, check your environment, test everything out several times before you have to do the video recordings.
Yeah,
man. So I did this several times, able to evade, Microsoft security with this particular attack. Man, just on the day that I was doing the recording, guess what? This attack was being caught by Microsoft security. I was like, damn.
Oh, sure.
And this was like less than a week when I did like a successful one several times against it, and I was able to evade it. So yeah, when it comes to these evading things, it's a cat and mouse thing, right? And I don't think so. Just in case, and I know Patrick and Desmond, you touch on this maybe eventually, but it's one of those things that anything about evading is about understanding the concept on how to evade.
Yeah.
Right. Once you understand the concept and the blueprint, then you are able to modify it and adjust it as and when you are faced with different kinds of detection. Yeah. So it's not just like, one size fits all. I know how to evade. and I'm going to evade, right? You're
Yeah.
going to meet several changes. Even right after this call, I know, like, even if you try some of these things, it's going to, like, you know, being caught.
Yeah.
But once you know the process of how do I go through the step-by-step or the mindset of how evading works, that is all that you need.
Makes sense.
You know, yeah.
Makes sense. Anyway, 10 minutes into the time, so
yeah, I think we can.
I think you can set the ball rolling so that we get going. Okay. All right, so we just cut the formality. Guys, welcome to AFRICAHACKON community session. This is our third in the year, so yeah, we've done better than last year. I mean, 2022 we couldn't do anything, but this year we've been able to do 2 rounds, and we're on the third one. I'll be co-doing this with Patrick. It's not a moderator speaker session. It's more of a conversation. So I'll be splitting in between with him. The core part would be to look at the case study. So I will take care of the case study. Patrick will take care of the demo, just to drill down the point. But I think it will be fair for people who might not be part of the community to know us. So we can just do a quick introduction of ourselves. So my name is Desmond. I'm the founder and lead consultant for Information Security Architects. We are Rapid7 Gold partners, so we are doing more of managed detection and response and offensive security. On the side, I also practice law. In the past 3 years, I've moved into more of research into national cybersecurity issues. Essentially, what goes into policy, how do we really get the technical understanding connected with the governance issues, because there's a huge disconnect between, what we do as technical people and what policymakers do as passing the laws. So my current work is to bring that technical knowledge, a bit of my industry knowledge, and try to understand how governance people are thinking. And when I say governance, I'm talking about governments, as in states and countries. And I'm doing these around national cybersecurity, global data privacy, and then the harms around artificial intelligence, specifically to do with national security. I lecture too, and I do a lot of open source intelligence, which maybe for the past 5 years I've been more focused on open source intelligence than even offensive security. I'm a member of the community, and I'm here to share knowledge together with my team member, Patrick. So Patrick, maybe you can introduce yourself real quick, and then we go.
Okay, thank you, Desmond. So, basically, my name is Patrick Ando. Also, there's founder and CSO for Base Defense. We also a partner to Acronis, who deals in EDRs and backup solutions. And I'm also a Sophos firewall architect, and basically, AFRICAHACKON Ghana, I'm also a member. On international platforms, I've been on several international platforms, including Israel, where we had the World Cybersecurity Conference, where I spoke on an application that I designed more like an EDR called Binary Defense System. And apart from that, I've also been interviewed by, I did a whole documentary with CNN, where I had to demonstrate some of the lead ways that hackers actually get access to some of these infrastructures. Yeah, so basically that's all about me.
Okay, so we're going to signpost you, but the other gentleman you see on the screen is Kofi, is very dedicated member to the AFRICAHACKON. Even though he's not having the presentation, he's well versed in the subject, and definitely we might be chipping in 1 or 2. So maybe Kofi, if you want to say a line or 2 before we signpost them. You're mute.
Yep, and I also mute.
All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kofi, as most of you know. We go all the way back with myself and Desmond and some of you on this call. I'm based off in the US. I have over 15 years of experience in cybersecurity. My area is specialized in OffSec. So I'm the guy who actually wants to benefit a lot from this presentation, because on one of my operations this year, man, it took me a whole week for me to bypass, to get an, AD. And this was like a very tight environment. And I was knocked around by all the EDRs around. Now, I mean, this company had like, everything that you can think of. They have CrowdStrike, they had like, Microsoft Security on, they have Sokol, they have everything on here, right? So I'm glad to be here to learn, from some of you guys here.
Awesome. All right, let's go. So we signpost you real quick. We're going to run this by like 5 sections. So we do a foundation, assuming that not everybody understands AETs. So we'll do foundation. We'll look at the techniques. So I'll do the foundation, do the techniques together with Patrick, and then I'll jump on the case study. Your case study is a 2023 find, which is called Stellarium, or the Stellar malware. And we just try to break it down and look at it from a reverse point of view. And then Patrick will come in with a long demo, just to make some of the points, especially for those who are already into EATs. Maybe you might pick a line or two from him. And then we will jump onto a countermeasure, which I'll do it together with him, pretty much try to address some of these issues from a blue team point of view. So the whole presentation looks at it from a red team point of view, and then the countermeasures look at it specifically from a blue team point of view. So, and then you can jump in with your questions. So on the countermeasures, we're just looking at it practically from our experiences, what we think that the current state of affairs should be when it comes to the countermeasures. Because yeah, we've already admitted that this is more like a cat and mouse game. So I'll jump on the foundation and then bring Patrick in when it matters, so we can go on from there. So let's go. All right. So what do we seek to achieve? I mean, there's a quick image on the screen. If you're more familiar, you see that that's a sniper. So the essence is to beat the system without authorization and detection. And I think that's important. We added emphasis to how NordVPN decided to address advanced evasive techniques. Now, advanced evasive techniques can also term them as advanced, defense evasive techniques. So it's the same thing anyhow you look at it, but the key thing here is you try not to get detected. So you're flying under the radar, and you are going in camouflaged. So if you are a blue teamer, that should give you a light bulb. And what should be the light bulb? It has to be what exactly, how would the defense be bypassed? Because the essence is to go around it. The essence is not to attack the defensive mechanisms that you have in-house. So if I'm not going to attack the defense mechanisms, then what exactly am I going to do? Blind spot analysis. So I'm introducing you to the term blind spot analysis. Funny enough, we did 2 separate presentations, and both Patrick and I, without initial collaboration, we're all discussing blind spot analysis. And then when we merged our presentation, we decided to maintain blind spot analysis. So if you are like an auditor or maybe a compliance person, you are more familiar with gap analysis, right? Okay, so the offensive guy who is focused on AETs, his new term is blind spot analysis. So from the intelligence that we gather about the environment, the question is, which areas are you not looking at? And you know why they are blind spot? It's because you already have the defense mechanism in there. So you're pretty much good. You have your EDR running, maybe your CrowdStrike, yeah. Maybe you have your SIM app. You have file integrity or data integrity file checking tools running in-house. I mean, you have everything. You've done training. Your users are much aware. This is why you would feel a bit comfortable with that. Okay, I have security up too. So the attacker who is coming in with the AET mindset is more focused on all these things that you have in-house. How do they fly under the radar? How do they come in without you seeing them? And that's where the blind spot analysis comes in. And usually you get that from maybe doing your OSINT, look at people, especially from a social engineering point of view. So in my case study, you would realize that Stellar malware was designed such that there's a reliance on a user clicking on the initial file. So whilst all the detection is built in, whilst all the evasion is built in, sorry about that, it doesn't get into the environment until somebody actually brings it into the environment. And so that's where you do a bit of blind spot analysis, looking at social engineering, for instance. Also process gaps, like who checks what? Have you automated some of these things in-house? And then technology insecurity also. I'll give you an example. If you put in application whitelisting in your environment, you're assuming that only trusted applications are going to work. A good way to bypass that is to inject into a trusted application. It's as simple as that. So that's a blind spot, you know, because your reliance on application whitelisting is that only legitimate applications are going to run. The attacker's game plan is to inject into the legitimate applications. So it's going to use technology insecurity. You are applying technology security, but the attacker is going to use technology insecurity to bypass or to evade that control and get into the environment. And the next point I would like to share with you is that it's not going to be a one-time, 1 point, 1 attack, 1 vector game. It's going to be a multiple vectors. You evade users, you try to get users to do things to evade the system. You try to mimic processes to evade the system. You try to use technology insecurity to evade the system. Essentially, you're hiding to attack. So that's like the build-up foundation. We'll discuss techniques. I'll launch you into the techniques. Patrick will take up from there, and then I'll come back for case studies. So in the blind spot analysis, because I discussed it, it's just to throw you a few things on the blind spot analysis. So you can, for instance, start by assessing the target passively. You might be wondering, okay, how does this matter? You see, AET itself is not just about the deployment of the malware, because even the deployment of the malware requires an understanding of the target. So you don't want to use active tools that would make noise, that would, you know, bring detection up. I give you one good one that I know of is when you go out to like social media or job boards. And then because I do OSINT, and then what we are looking out for is like technical roles and mid-manager roles. Why? Because on those roles, most people who are posting on the job boards, like Indeed and the rest, they are also advertising the kind of skill that they are looking for, and some of them are tied to platforms. So, for instance, they would say have knowledge about Splunk, right? They would say have knowledge about IS, maybe file detection, file integrity tools. They would say have knowledge about Active Directory. You know, they'll keep mentioning all sorts of things. They have knowledge about CrowdStrike and all that. That looks very easy and cool. For you, it's harmless. But for me, who's trying to build a blind spot analysis for an attack, that's good information, because my team is going to develop malwares knowing that they have to evade these sort of structures in your environment. So that's where a good blind spot analysis comes in. And then how do we get people to get it engaged? Call it the 5%. Someone has to click for us. So you're going to come in hoping that you get somebody to do the initial job of getting you in. AVs are running in the environment, but if you ever heard of Encase or any tool like Encase, you can actually module your attack on a VM Protect. So the traditional AV is not going to run that, because you come into the environment as though you are a virtual machine. So if it's an environment that doesn't have a strong protection for virtual machines, that's going to be an evasion way. So these are just like examples you can have. Again, when it's heuristics and signatures, you're looking at ODAs and custom payloads, which is why I think that the demo Patrick put together is quite important for a community like this. I spoke about application whitelisting, so let me not bore you with that. I'll come back to it again when I'm doing the case study, because you know, I try and explain something around that area. And then if you're doing sandboxing is good, but what is a blind spot with sandboxing? You know, when you sandbox, it moves with other running applications. So I'll just give you an example. If you sandbox Internet Explorer, and I don't know if you tried it, if you sandbox Internet Explorer, it still allows add-ons like Java and the rest to run. So if the attack is modeled into a Java attack, then definitely that's a blind spot on your sandboxing. Yeah, Patrick, you might want to continue from here.
Yeah, so I think coming into the blind spots from both defense side of things and some of the things and the rating assessments that we've done for most of the companies. One thing that we've realized is that most companies don't know their controls. And when I say most companies don't know their controls, I'm talking about the visibility of the whole infrastructure. Now, you see, you might have EDR, you might have SIEM, you might have what have you, but the question is, do you know the full capability of what you have? That is what we term by the visibility. For example, I was working with one company, and then they had this Sophos EDR. Now, most of the payload that I designed, I realized that the EDR is able to detect it, but it is not able to prevent it. This is what we mean by the visibility. All right. So we are torn between what your security implementation can detect and at the same time prevent, right? So when you have knowledge of this thing and then you have to do a comprehensive test in your own environment, that is where you are able to cast your mind towards the visibility stage where you already now know your controls, what techniques that your applications can, your security devices can detect, but they can't prevent, and what techniques your security implementation can detect and prevent at the same time. And one of the things that I've realized is that, especially when it comes to the blue team, you realize that their skill level only match the what they call it, the tools that they are using. If it is a SIEM, that is the only thing that they know. So when the SIEM or that particular tool gets to its limit, most of them can't think beyond what the capabilities of that particular tool. So it's like they are stuck. They can't do anything, and that's the mistake. I feel that blue teams should be able to be more proactive even than the tools that they are using. Even though this whole demo is not about the tool that I designed, one of the things that we thought about was, for example, let's say there is a new malware in the world. You don't know what is it, but you have the indicators of compromise. You don't have to wait for your EDR vendor to update their EDR. There should be a way for you to, design your own detection mechanism, feed it to whatever application that you are using, so that next time that you have such attack in your environment, is able to detect it. So this is what we mean by visibility. But most companies don't have this kind of visibility. Their only reliance is on the security applications that they have, and that is it.
That's it. Do you want to touch on the custom payloads, or you want me to do that?
Yeah, go ahead with the custom payload.
All right, cool. Okay, so so now, because we are looking at it from a red teamer point of view, the attacker point of view, but you as a defense person should be looking at the things that the attacker is interested in. So usually, because the environment is signature based, it's knowledge based, and that's these things that I'm saying have been proven. Like these are relevant research you can easily fall back on. Like top CIA guys are reviewing, blind spot documentation, and they are trying to write papers that helps the US government to understand why, for instance, a state level attack will be successful when EATs are involved. And I think custom payloads have been focused on in there heavily, because the current environment that most of us have are knowledge-based. And they call them knowledge-based because they are signature-based, they are heuristic-based. It is things that we know, that we've put in place to detect what we know. So the idea is to develop custom payloads. And if you are using an AET, you develop in custom payloads. So custom payloads are some of the things that are going to enter into your environment, right? And so from the attacker point of view, is interested in trying to develop custom payloads. So look like PyInstaller, PyInjector, PyObfuscate. These would help to deploy like ESCs into your environment, rather than pushing the Python codes, the raw Python codes themselves. If you look at the current state of, the strength of PowerShell, you would understand that, getting things like NetSH running to turn on advanced firewall is important, because Windows currently, I don't know how many of you have studied that, Windows currently on the FTP protocol, Windows actually does stateful FTP. So Windows can tell you what is actually coming through the FTP traffic. It's no more a blunt protocol check, like stateless. So they are applying the same firewall techniques that we have on stateful firewall and stateless firewall to the FTP protocol, and this runs on Windows. So one way to turn it off is to use a tool like this, and these are ways by which these custom tools are able to, like, kind of like be under the radar, which is something you're going to hear me say over and over. So why would you be successful? Don't touch the disk. Don't write anything to the disk, right? Don't touch the disk. So as much as possible, you're looking for all the techniques that will make it possible not to touch the disk. So PowerShell scripting is coming up, and those who love command line, if you like the bare metal, you would understand why PowerShell would do a much better job. I think there's a wrong spelling there. It's not PowerShell. It's not another tool. It's PowerShell. And then you have the VB scripting. So all your shell loads, all the shell loads that you are going to develop should be shell loads that do not touch the disk. As soon as you touch the disk, and if you understand all these AV detection, EDR detection, you would definitely know that it has to do with an activity that is happening in the environment. So the disk is always the first place to look at. So don't touch the disk. It's one of the strategies. So it means that on the blue team side, you're also looking at how to be able to strategize yourself when these processes, these applications run. How do we pick them, right? So you are going to move from knowledge-based to from knowledge signature-based to behavioral-based attacks, which is why current research on AI for security is quite a relevant thing. I had my doubts about it, but recent documents that I've looked at, I think that we are really, really going to get somewhere if we have AI. As much as you're going to get stronger attacks, you're also going to get stronger defense. Take it from me. So then again, you have to obfuscate why are you doing that? You just have to camouflage your way into the environment. So you're picking the tricks. If you're getting into AETs newly, then it's definitely you have to beef up your scripting from your bash to PowerShell scripting. There's tons of materials out there to help you at least convert some of your scripts to PowerShell scripts. You need to also get to understand some of the new things that Windows have added to the Windows internals. That is making them easy to detect some of these things, and then you can build custom payloads around them. Of course, once there's a vulnerability, you can always get your foot in there. Avoid touching the disk anyway. So let's stage the attack. Right. So once everything is put together, target an individual, because we need to get somebody to do the job for us. If there's a way of getting it into the environment, then without targeting an individual, then that's fine. But I know that 99% of the time you will need an individual to do that, because even Stuxnet needed somebody to plug that drive into the environment, and Stuxnet have been held to be one of the finest and low radar kind of attacks on a state. This is not even enterprise, on a state. If you also followed the attack on Lockheed Martin, which is the defense contract, one of the defense contractors for the US government, they build airplanes. The F-series airplanes that came out recently, if you follow kind of military news, you notice that China released similar airplanes like the US government. And when they did the forensic, they realized that there was an invasion into Lockheed Martin. So definitely went back to somebody clicking something. So Chinese attackers were contracted to get in there, do what they can do. So staging the attack always has to do with the individual. Why did we bring it here? For the defense side, you really want to begin to pay attention to the users. And of course, once you get them to click something, then the technique has to be to evade. The principle is that the internal network is trusted. So everything about evasion has to do with either using the trust of the internal network to get through, or staying under the radar and allowing being detected. Okay, so you build a take it up.
Looking at from the previous slide, where you have to get an individual, click on all this kind of stuff, you realize that I'm saying this because I know we might have beginners who are joining the session. Because of this capture the flag events and all those kind of stuff, most people come with the mentality that in the real world, things work the same way. But in the real world, things are actually different. I don't even remember the last time I scanned airports trying to find, trust me, this thing doesn't really work in the real world. We're doing a pen test for one bank in Togo. And when we started it, I saw some of the guys trying to do their scan and all those kind of stuff. And trust me, I don't think any system administrator nowadays is, excuse my language, like a moron to be leaving out some of these vulnerabilities where you find a port and then it doesn't really work like that. Yeah. So right now, the whole hacking scheme now have to do with how to target an individual, how you'll be able to convince, what you call your pretest, how your pretest is going to be convincing enough for your individual or your target to click on the link, and most importantly, how you are going to evade detection. So this is where building a very robust infrastructure, your red team infrastructure, is very, very important, where even if your one of your domain front-end system is burned, at the end of the day, you still have the ability to still continue the test. So it's not about you trying to scan systems and what have you. It's about that attacker mindset where you have to be psychologically be able to get access to an individual, send him something to click on, and that thing should be very, very enticing. If you know Avians, we're doing a pen test for them, and then we send this phishing email. And prior to that, the system administrator had told me that there's going to be a redundancy, and most of the staff there know. So we took advantage of that, and we did the heading something like list of staffs to be sacked. And because of that, everybody wanted to open it to see if his name is within. You get it. Yeah, and that is how we were able to get into the organization. So modeling this kind of attack strategy is very, very important in the real world. Not trying to scan targets and ports, and trust me, those things doesn't really work in the real world now.
Makes sense. Thanks, Champ. All right, so let's do the next bit and then maybe get into case study real quick. I know some of the top guys are here for the demo, but let's build a base. Okay, so all right, so we are sharing ideas of a few things as well that you do when you are in the door. So again, thinking as a red teamer, thinking like the attacker, but this is also good for the blue teamer because then you understand the areas that you should look at. All right. First thing we would advise is, as trying to use AETs, once you get in, you have to avoid domain admins at first glance. It's not the first thing that you have to go for. Those are actually high monitored accounts, which definitely once you touch them brings up the red flags. So you would want to go in for low radar for some time. For instance, in Stellarium, one thing that it does is, even though it doesn't go for credentials specifically, what it does is when it gets in, it goes into sleep mode just to make sure that, it studies the environment. So there's nothing active happening. And when I do the case study, you might probably pick that better. So the idea here is to avoid, anything that has detection flags on them. And we think that domain admins are not places you want to go once your foot is in the door. Look for credentials elsewhere. That's pretty much it. Also, you want to emulate normal traffic. That's where process injection and some of these things come in. You don't want to pass traffic that it's suspicious, and it's also important to understand the environment. Again, Stellarium used that pretty much well, where it goes in, looks at what is the system actually looking out for. So it does what they call the anti-analysis. Are you looking for certain behaviors? And then it tries to shut down any of those applications that is making that happen on the local host before it actually begins to execute its payload. So yeah, you always have to look away from normal traffic. Test the stuff. I mean, both leads on the call would support that position. Test the stuff. You can get in there and it's not going to work because this is a cat and mouse game. We've agreed to that already. So test the stuff. Exactly. Yeah, and then know exactly what you are attacking. This is not it's not random work. It's not AET. It's not random work. It's not throw everything out there and see who bites the bait. You need to know exactly what you're going in for because you're going to module your attack around that particular thing. So that's something you should know. Because you can be in the environment. I remember we also did some job for one of the banks. I try to avoid mentioning the name of my clients because when I'm using the case study, some of them are sensitive. So we did this job, and I was with some of the ninjas on the AFRICAHACKON. We gained hold of a system, and we are actually in a banking application. And the first thing we try to do is to, go after the banking application. But that was a very bad move because, first of all, we're bereft of knowledge. The banking application actually required an understanding of how that application works in itself. So some of the commands we were throwing were actually giving out, log flags to admins, and therefore that's how some of them picked up that, okay, you guys have been able to get into this space. So yeah, practical knowledge will tell you that you need to know your stuff. You need to know what you are attacking. Even if you are able to gain hold, my advice would be, if you are able to footprint and understand that, okay, this is the target. Say, for instance, the target is running an ERP and you've not used that ERP before, just chill and do a bit of checks and understand how that ERP works. What are some of the controls in that ERP? And you should be good. Of course, time is of essence, but it's better to know your stuff than get in there and get detected. So remain undetected until the kill. I made that point already. For a few tools in trying to lay under the radar when you are in the environment. You can check NetView. It's from Nubix. It allows you to pretty much enumerate silently in the environment. And then some of the tools that I personally know, I think both Kofi and Patrick would attest to this. If you run PSXZ commands, they are also very low detected radar commands. You can also try the multipreter inject, which is inside Metasploit, for those of you who are more familiar with Metasploit. And then there's this tool called SMB exec for enumerating internal SMB from Bravox. You can also check that out. So let's wrap it up. Don't do these things. Patrick has touched on all these things already. Don't do any of these things, right? Don't do post scan unless it's something selective and target. Don't do sweeps. Don't. And so I'm also telling blue teamers that we are in an era where red teamers are not doing sweeps, especially if they are very, well-versed red teamers. Don't add admin accounts until it's very, very necessary. Don't upload malwares unless there are malwares that are actually low under the radar. You want to stay under the radar, so these are things you shouldn't be doing. Don't do remote hash tampering. You can actually harvest the hash and deal with it offline. So you can run in safe mode, use tools like Registry Hive to do that kind of job, and be cautious of deception technologies. I don't know if people want to ask questions because we are moving into the meat of the site. I'll do a case study for about 6 minutes. Patrick comes in and then he takes up the demo. Then we come back and address your questions. I know this will be interactive. I know people are taking notes. So let me know if we have a question now. We can deal with that. I mean, question on the last 2 sessions. Or else Kofi will just jump into case study. So we do case study, right?
I haven't seen any hands up yet. So if anyone has any question, we have the this is Zoom. Is different from the Google thing that we used last time, Meet. So there's raise hands emotion. If not, just unmute yourself and then just speak up if you have any question. If you can find an emoji to raise your hands, just unmute yourself and then just shout out your question. All
right, let's go on then. So Stellarium is the February 2023 case study for AET. There are a lot, but that's what we picked up. I picked it up for 2 reasons. The reverse engineering has been done already. Stellarium itself, the base malware is on GitHub. So for those of you who like to play around with some of these things, you can take it and try and use it. I don't know how far you go with it in your lab, but this has been done already. And people have picked the GitHub file and they've actually built malwares based on the Stellarium and it's in the wild. So I follow Upsys. Upsys is like a reverse engineering company, not very big, but the thing is they do very detailed job. So credit to them for this work, which I'm just going to rely on to make my point. All right, so these are the baselines. You forgive us if this environment is a bit new to you, but maybe just from the explanation, you can get something from here. Because at this point, it's a bit more technical. So what it starts with is the PowerPoint. It creates a PowerPoint file, and so the delivery is through the PowerPoint file. So this is where you have the target user, target individual kind of game coming into play, which Patrick touched on extensively. So by all means necessary, the attackers are looking out for getting somebody to click on this PowerPoint.exec. But why would we come through PowerPoint.exec? I mentioned application whitelisting to you. I also told you about the internal trust. PowerPoint processes, PowerPoint applications are applications that are trusted in the environment. So, I mean, no matter what it is, if it comes through an email and is open, systems are going to allow it to open. But this is the game plan. When it opens, it does not execute the malware directly as an application. It creates a PPDM file, which it logs onto the device. That PPDM file calls the PowerShell script and executes a legit PowerShell command, which downloads a file. Now, guess what? PowerShell goes to the internet and downloads a file. PowerShell does not download a file that is suspicious. It downloads a TXT file. Ordinarily, this is a regular file. Most of your detectors are going to allow TXTs to download because what could be the worst, right? Now, once that download gets to the box, it creates 4 other files. I have different screens to show you real quick, but this is just the big picture. 4 different files. The first one is the Cypher cryptographer. Now, that file is what actually contains the DLL to run. But once it creates the file, again, it creates the file with an unknown file extension. So that's the file extension you are seeing, the dot, and then the sign, the plus, and that other sign. I always forget the name of that sign. So once this file is created, then the DLL is generated out of these files. So in the creation of the file, again, your file integrity checkers will not be able to pick this up again. Why? Because file integrity checkers are all knowledge-based tools. They are checking for known malicious extensions. Zip, suspicious, right? DCOM, suspicious, right? Even EXEs, suspicious, depending on the threshold you put on your file integrity checkers. But here, it drops you a file that has an unknown extension. And then that's where the DLL loader, the code loader is. And then from there, it downloads it. It generates these drivers.js, OneDrive.updates.js, and then the Outlook update.js, which now combines them into the DLL file. Now, how does the DLL file runs? Goes into camouflage mode. It is injected into normal known processes. You know how the Windows system works, then you know what Reg Services is. It's for all the remote operations of registry. So RedServ, and it does all the 2 versions that I know of, the version 2 and the version 4. It's able to inject into any of them. And then it also injects into MS Build. This allows it to stay under the radar beyond detection. And again, you see the 4 files that are created? It also for persistency. So they are dumped into the program's data file, and a new drive is created, a new folder is created in there. Now, when you shut down the PC and you reboot, these are the files that would keep the malware in the environment. So whilst they're under the radar, they're also serving as persistency. So pretty much that's how the technical flow is. So what does it take out of your environment? It's looking for general network data, it's looking for financial data, and then the key thing about it is also that it's looking for crypto wallet services. So these are some of the things it picks out of your network. So these are just the breakdowns of the activity. Remember, I mentioned to you about the files that are downloaded. So that's where it downloads to. Maybe I should move my mouse to this. Give me a minute. My mouse is asleep. Okay, right. So now I have a mouse on the screen now. So program data, the Megamind Cypher is a folder that is created in there, and then this is dumped in there. The essence is to be able to enable the malware to stay persistent, right? I put some notes in there. These slides will be shared, so don't worry. Now, inside the first file, which is the Cypher cryptography, there's a code that is running. The key thing here is to look for GMOX32. GMOX32 would allow the malware itself to be able to do some encryption. But for those who are a bit program savvy, let's go up to the try-catch. Now, the try-catch, you see the processes that are being stopped there. REST services is stopped momentarily. MS Build is stopped momentarily. Caspol is stopped momentarily. JSC is stopped. ASP.NET compiler is also stopped momentarily because it's going to inject itself into some of these things. So it will inject itself into REST services and MS Build, but there are dependencies on Caspol, JSC, and then ASP.NET compilers, and that's why it's going to shut them down as well. So before it brings them up, it would have injected itself into it. So you see that like on the next one, which is the DLL. So this is where the DLL injection is done. So you see, this is, again, with, my recent thought process has always been about to create names that matches what is actually happening. This is what I'll call attack as a code, right? I've seen detection as a code. I went for a training with Panther Security, in the US, and I mean that's why I picked up the knowledge about detection as a code. So they are not running EXEs. Everything you want to detect, you need to put the code into the system to pick it up. So this is attack as a code. You're not getting EXEs dumped at you so that your file detectors can pick them up. No, you're actually getting the code coming as, you know, text files, and when they are in your system, they compile themselves and do what they got to do. So that's a very strategic way to stay under the radar. So detection as a code is happening here, and you could see if you look at the code again, especially the part that I highlighted, calling function for DLL, you will see the processes I told you were stopped earlier, all of a sudden are being called to start. Right? So once it injects itself, it goes into camouflage mode, and then it starts these processes. Why do you think your EDR will pick up this process? It won't. It won't, for the very simple reason that reg services and MS build are required for the proper function of your operating system. You know, so it's going to stay there quietly and get into the environment. So knowledge-based detection would not make it successful for you. And once you move out from there, that's a bit of modification, which is the next screen you are seeing here. I'm showing you the part that deals with the Windows Defender modification. So let me bring it up in a quite bigger screen, which is this. So you could see, key here is the exclusions that are created. Now it creates exclusion for PPAM, exclusions for bus, DLS, XLS, DOX. All the exclusions that you are seeing there are created, including the exclusion for folders that are there. Might be wondering what's happening here. This is another way to evade detection, because Windows Defender, anything in that exclusion folder would allow execution. It's the same that's going to happen with any other EDR. If you put there, if you allow exclusion to certain folders or certain directories or certain file paths, those places are not going to be scanned. So the EAT has studied the system. He understands that, okay, all these things, you know, will be excluded. It creates exclusions for them. It creates exclusions for itself as well. So the EDR or the endpoint security accepts it as regular running. Remember the blind spot analysis I spoke about. This is a typical blind spot and a typical technology insecurity. It is designed into the technology to help in the proper function of the technology. But at AET, will definitely take advantage of it, either as a blind spot or as a technology insecurity, and get going with that. Let me take you to the anti-analysis, and then I'll close with the a few indicator of compromise, and Patrick, you can jump in with the demo right from there. So on the anti-analysis, what is it doing? Pretty much the Stellarium is trying to understand in the environment what is running that is helping in detection. That's what the anti-analysis part is. So it checks for debugger. If debugger is running, it's going to turn it off, because it needs to check if debugger is running. It checks for all these things to be sure that nobody, you're not looking at where it wants to operate from. It checks for emulators. It checks for sandbox. It checks for host. It will check if the host, what IP address is associated with the host, and whether the host is a deception technology, as in if it's running like in a sandbox or any of those deception technology tools or isolation tools. Recently, isolation technology is another thing that has come out tops. And then you have the sandbox check, and then the virtual. Some of the things I didn't add, for instance, it checks for your webcam, it checks for your Wi-Fi and all those things, but I thought that I could skip that. And then you can look at the payload side of things. So the payload side is where you have the yellow inscriptions. These are all payloads that it runs you through. On the last part of these case study on Stellarium, what does it take out of the environment? On the left side of your screen, these are some of the pointers that I just want to give. There are quite a lot of them. I put the URL in the presentation slide. So when you get the slides, you can just go up there and read the full material. But yeah, these are some of the things that it's going to do. It could actually take information about the active Windows. It could do desktop screenshots. It could do file grabbing. It could pick up information, relevant information like IP machine, virtualization, and all kinds of things. And it usually uploads it back to a GitHub repo. And then on your other side are the indicators of compromise. So if you have an EDR and you want to put this into the environment as knowledge-based detection, then currently these are the indicators of compromise. I think when you get the slides, you might look at them well, and then you can even go on the URL and confirm it. So the 2.txt file, once it's generated on your system, then we have a problem. The purchase order PPAM, if it's on your file, we have a problem. So is the other ones that I've listed here. So that's the case study. The case study is Stellarium. It's a February 2023 malware. Like I said, it's on GitHub as a malware, which you can actually look at. Most of the attacks that have been discussed are based on the GitHub core file of Stellarium. I can jump off from here and allow Patrick to take over the screen. We'll come back again and do the countermeasures with you. So your demo, I understand, would work around. We're supposed to do AMSI, but there's a bit of a detection there. Patrick will explain how it's relevant in this place, but he will do something modeled around the EDR bypass. Champ, you ready?
Okay, all right. Thanks.
I'm stopping screen. I'll come back like that. So you can share your screen from here. All right, thanks, guys. So Patrick will take over from here. We'll come back for countermeasures.
I don't know if you can see my screen.
I can.
Yeah. Okay. So, surprising enough, this is the first time I'm hearing of Stellarium, but surprisingly, it seems they are employing some of the techniques that I've actually modeled in this particular tool. Just like you were explaining with the white application whitelisting, and yes, it's kind of the same thing that I have modeled in this tool. Now, basically, it's very technical, but to wrap everything up, if you know much about Windows and how it does its operation, you realize that before any process is created, the first thing that is actually called is the NTDL file. That is the first thing that is called. So when you look at these EDRs and how they operate, you realize that because it is the NTDL file that is actually called first, all these EDR have to halt their have to halt their operation. Now it is later then that these EDRs are now also begin to call their DLLs to hook into some of these processes. So in analyzing that, we're like, okay, so if the NTDL is what is actually called first, then why don't we inject ourselves into that space and then suspend the process? Now, while the process is suspended, then we migrate into a very legitimate file within the operating system. So before the EDR begin to do their hooking and all this kind of thing, the shellcode is no more there. It is actually injected into a legitimate process for it to work. So we modeled a tool, and it's a tool that we've been using internally in bit defense. We call it shadow nets. So basically, this is the shadow net, and so what it does is that we also look at some of these open source tools like Metasploit and all this kind of things. So we pick their shellcode. Then what ShadowNet does is that it begins to do its magic by injecting the shellcode into a legitimate process. And then what will happen is that it has to encrypt the payload, and we're looking at an encryption mechanism called ELSMA. Which is very good because of its file compression, because you also need to make the shellcode
lighter,
as small as possible to also help in this.
So ShadowNet is a tool you built?
Yes, so it's a tool that I built,
awesome.
Which helps in this detection, right? So basically,
is it on Git? Or this
no,
is proprietary on your work?
We use it internally, so I've not released it.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So basically, what we have to do is that we have to first generate a raw bin file and then feed it to the program. So basically, we first have to. So let me first check my IP. Okay. So let's do MSF Venom. So
for those who don't know, MSF Venom is just creating a payload.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just going to look for a reverse shell kind of payload.
Yeah.
Why do you use a raw format? Because you're creating a binary?
Yes. Yeah, we are creating a binary. It needs to, the tool has to pick in a raw binary to be able to do its magic. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So whilst it's doing that, let's quickly go to MSF to also do our, what do you call it, our reverse handler. Yeah.
Kofi, I understand that some people waiting in the lobby, so maybe you can add them for us.
So we let me put on my lab.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Right. Sorry, Patrick, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just putting on my lab machine. We praying that the demo gods will be on our favor.
You are a risky person, man. You are a risky man.
We love you. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a risky move, bro.
Yeah. But guys, you must understand, even if this is picked up, this is actually what AET is about. It's a cat and mouse game. I mean, the first phrase I heard when I connected the call, we started talking, was that this is a cat and mouse game. So yeah, it is what it is.
So I'm setting up all our reverse handlers.
Okay.
I think there's a mistake with the L ports.
L ports.
Come again?
I think there's a
sorry.
mistake.
Oh yeah. Right, that's true.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you.
Come back and fix it. Finish this and then go back and fix it. Yeah.
All right, thank you, man.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we have our payload, which is generated, which is over here. So over here, we have the shadow net with the Elzima encryption. So this is the command line to, so what we are doing is that we are generating a DLL file over here using the, what do you call it?
The binary that you picked up earlier.
Exactly. And then what we want to do is to spawn the notepad.exe, which is a legitimate application on the Windows.
Okay,
and
so hold on, wait.
It with,
Hold on. So you created a binary. Now you're using the binary for a DLL, and you are going to inject the DLL into a notepad file.
Notepad file, yes, okay. Exactly. So that's the whole. Okay, so it's doing it in Magic now. So basically, that's the whole idea, to be able to encrypt the share code, and after encryption, it goes into the notepad, and then with that you are able to get a what do you call it, a call back into your C2 or whatever reverse handler that you are using. Yeah, basically. Okay. So now I know one of the good things is not to drop to disk, but for the sake of for the purposes of the demo, I'll be copying it and we'll be dropping it to disk, and then we'll do the execution and see how Windows Defender and what have you try to detect it.
Pick it up. Okay.
So yeah, so it's taking time because there's a whole lot of encryption mechanism going over there. So
yeah, we get
a few moments here.
Okay. Anybody has questions specifically on the demo? Maybe whilst we wait, this is a good time to ask and get something addressed for you. Like maybe you want to know something specifically on the demo, not on a general presentation, because there's going to be a Q&A. Yeah, but I think that for my part, it makes a lot of sense to go for the binary because, of course, your system is not really going to check binaries, right? And then,
Okay.
oh, we're up, right? Okay.
Yeah, so it's done. So let's oh, sorry.
All right. Whilst Patrick is looking at, we have Mick Sam has their hands raised. Please unmute yourself and then ask your question or your contribution.
All right. So with the command line arguments, when running the shadow net tool, I realized there was a tag P. I just wanted to ask, what is it doing? Because I know that the payload.bin is used to spawn notepad.exe. So I'm wondering why the notepad.exe was specified with that -p flag.
Okay, a moment, please. Let me first
that's
drop.
a good one.
I'll come back to us. Okay, so we've dropped the notes.dll. So now we can now execute it. So 32. Okay, so we have Windows Defender over here. So we can see that there is no what do you call it? There is no flag or anything over here, but we have Windows Defender up and running.
Right.
Right. So we can see we have the so you can see it's up to date 11th. All right. So and then we have the manage settings, and then the only thing I've turned off is the automatic sample submission and all those things. So yeah. So we go to what happened.
Try running the exploit again.
Let me try it running the exploit again.
It wasn't able to validate the L host. I think you have to unset the L host. It is still recognizing the L host at 443. So if you do options, can you
do options and let's see what your settings
are. Okay, let me do
show options. Let's see what your settings are.
You see,
right.
Okay, so sets.
There you go.
Hosts. Okay, so I need to let me quickly do that. So
okay. Let's confirm.
Just a quick thing. So with the new version of Metasploit, just type in options also works. So you don't even need to do show.
Show options.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay. So basically we need to trigger the code again.
Yeah.
So when you come here, we have the session already opened. Yeah. So basically that is how the tool is actually modeled to work using that particular technique as to how DL all the DLs of EDRs are suspended before what do you call it, the NCDL are called. Yeah, so that is the advantage. So is that latency in between that the tool takes advantage of before this DLs are actually called by the EDR to do this kind of hooking. Yeah, so I think someone asked the question.
The question on the switch, the argument that you passed now.
Yes.
-p.
No, so it's just a flag for what do you call it? The tool telling it that it is creating this what do you call it? It has picked this payload.bin, and then it is modeling it into another form, which is where we are outputting it as the notepad.dll. Yes. So within the notepad, there's another code that is telling it that is with the .p that when you get to the system, migrate to that process, which is the notepad.exe. So basically, that's what the whole command means. Right.
And Patrick, I didn't mean to cut you off. For those who are not appreciating what just happened, wait until you start running your own red team operations and then begin to appreciate what just happened. You may think this is like
your regular
the Hollywood kind of movies and shows where people are jumping through firewalls and it's like so real. Now, what Patrick just did, I can guarantee you once you begin to run operations and you find yourself in a very tight environment, you understand how much work he had to put into
to get to this point.
to put into this tool right here, because I can testify to me spending a whole week and a half or so trying to evade, doing research upon research. And of course, we talked about DA, but at this point, I had gone through everything. We had everything. And the ultimate was, let's go for DA. And man, just being able to dump credentials from memory, these EDRs were just knocking us up and down, sideways and everything, until I landed on this same concept of borrowing or stealing a process before the EDR triggers. And
exactly,
funny enough, the technique I used was Notepad. So
actually,
I'm surprised I just saw this, right? This was I think back in April or May-ish when I run that up, we run that operation. And yes, so this is a great work, and I hope you guys are appreciating what you just saw. Sam still has their hands up, so
let him shoot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I wanted to ask, you use an HTTPS, use HTTPS as your protocol for sending the traffic. So I just wanted to ask if the traffic is actually encrypted with a certificate. So hello.
Please, can you come again?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask if that HTTPS traffic is actually encrypted, and if it is encrypted, how is the encryption done?
I think Patrick, if you don't mind, so Sam's question is, when you set up your multi-handler, right? Okay. I think you're using HTTPS protocol. So if you look at the payload is using Windows x64 metapreter reverse _ HTTPS as opposed to HTTP. So he wants to find out, of course, we all know that if you're using HTTPS, there has to be a certificate generated by the server, right? So he wants to find out the back end process, how that certificate is being handled. Is that right? Is that what your question was, Sam?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So first of all, let me clarify one thing. So it's not static that I have to use what do you call this, HTTPS. Yes, you can use any handler that you want. One of the reasons why I always prefer to use HTTPS is most of the time HTTP and HTTPS, most of the time they are the port that are not actually blocked on a system. So that is why I love to use that. But if in a real world, if that is what is going to happen, then it will make sense to what they call it. If you know of binary sign-in using some of these Microsoft what do you call it, sign-in certificates, then you can sign your payload to be able to do that.
And if I could also chip in a bit here, I think Metasploit has the capability, and again, I think the capability to self-generate its own certificate for your Metasploit, server. So you don't have to create your own certificate whilst it's trying to create your payload.
I was actually thinking I was thinking along the same lines with Kofi, because if you look at the process, it's actually a it's a Metasploit process, it just had pretty much you selected the kind of payload you want, and that payload was a reverse HTTPS, so I want to believe that it leverages on its own certificate at the back end, maybe on the Metasploit DB. I don't know. But Maxak, were you thinking about something else, or you were just trying to get clarity? If you're thinking about something as a community, you can share with us.
Oh no, I just wanted clarity.
Okay. All right.
All right. Okay, so we have what do you call it? Another tool that operates on the what do you call it? On the same concept, but this time around, we are trying to do what we call the living of the land binary to execute a malware. But this time around, we are not executing just like the Stellarium, right? We are not executing an EXE or DLL and all those kind of stuff. We are just executing a normal file, which is just a .xml file, which is, from my point of view, most EDRs are not actually looking at that particular stage simply because we are using the tool uses MS build to do the execution, and then the execution is just a normal file like .xml file. All right. So we also created and behind this, there's a whole lot of technicalities that goes on. Just I don't want to bore you with all those technicalities. So I kind of summarize everything that the tool is doing. So there's another tool that we built. We called it Olympic Games. All right, which also takes the what do you call it, binary to also do the same thing, right? So we give the payload.bin to do its magic on. All right, so what it's doing is that it actually so it also picking the payload.bin, which is your share code. And then it also AES encrypts it, and after AES and after the AES encryption, it put it into a .xml file, which looks very, very legitimate and just legit. A plain file, and yeah, very harmless. All right, so we copied this one too, and so we paste it. Right, so we use the what do you call it? I think it's C, if I've not forgotten it. Right, so it's Windows, I think it's Microsoft.net, and then Framework 64, version 4, msbuild.exe, and then we call that, which is so it's also we are using msbuild to also execute what do you call it, the payload, right? The payload. So we also have Windows Defender staying very silent, and then if we go to our attacking machine, we should be able to see the session opened, right?
Fantastic.
So yeah, so we have another session opened here. So, and these are tools we've been using for quite a while, and we've tried it with most of. I didn't use any of the ERs because I've actually landed when I was in my former company at Calling Solutions. I used an EDR to do some of the demonstrations, and it almost landed us in a lawsuit. So I've learned from that, not using commercial product to be doing your But trust me, I've been using this tool for quite a long time, and most of the EDRs are not picking it up. Right.
All right. This is good.
Yeah.
We have another hand.
So basically,
Big Sam.
All right, so I see you using an XML file. So what actually does the XML file contain? Does it pass anything, or is anything passed from the XML file to that executable to do? Yeah, I just want to know.
Yeah, so what happened is that when you use the MS build, all right, MS build is used to what do you call it? Build your source code like C++ and all those kind of stuff. All right. So when you do that, it's like it's trying to what do you call it? Build something like a source code file. Okay. So in its building, it is that process. It's like it wraps the what do you call it? The XML file. So in trying to process it, it ends up executing the shell code. So basically, that's what it's doing.
It's like if you are used to using Visual Studio or Visual Code, or any platform used to write a program, right? Once you write your source code, you hit like build or something which will run it and then build the entire
then it will build the entire source code.
Exactly. Source code, yes.
EXE. MS Builder is a command line version, or like, let's say CSC of the GUI that you normally have for building your code. So MS Build is taking a file, is going to read a source code in an XML file, and then begin to run and then build your EXE for you. In this case, you have your malware in the XML, and then the course of building it, that is just like running your code for you.
Yeah, I think I just add two things to it. First of all, you guys must understand that MS Build itself has the XML schema in there. So it's XML is something that it recognizes. Okay. And then the second thing is that, like Kofi said, it's bare metal. It doesn't need like Visual Studio to run. You know, MS Build runs bare metal from the command line. So I think it makes sense that execution happen. But Maxam, you wanted to know what is inside the XML. So it pretty much, that would be the execution, either the execution command or the execution path. Why do you do that? You just want to bypass the system. You want that particular command to run as a legitimate process. So the third process is to put that command that you would ordinarily would have gone to the system and run, which would have been picked up. You want a legitimate process to run it, so that all the defense mechanisms you have in the environment will see it as a legitimate process being executed. And once it's executed, the other side of it is that you get a reverse shell like we're seeing, and then the attack can be staged. Your hand is still up. You can bring it up. You can ask a question.
So does MS Build drop an executable, or does it just be apply?
No, it doesn't drop an executable.
It won't drop an executable. No.
All right.
And if you want to see the file structure of XML, like just any regular XML, just go to your file explorer on Windows and then just search for XML. You see a ton
tons of them,
those, and then so you can open one and then look at the structure of how it is, because just like any other program, they will have like their own structure of how you write you write your code or your program in it. It's like YAML. It's like YAML. It's like one of those, like any of those. They
like
have
YAML, like SAML, like
SAML, how you structure
all of them,
your code, and XML has its own way of structuring your code. Your input.
Someone said it's a beautiful way of rewriting HTML.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so basically, these are just the the two techniques that's from the binary defense side of things. We've been using, but we are all in one community. If you want the tool to do your red team assessment, you can holler me, then we can see how to go about it.
That's it. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So I think our two demos are up. Let's get on back to the slides. Let's talk about the countermeasures.
So let me stop the share.
Open the floor up for the community to engage. I'm sure people definitely have more questions. Thanks guys for staying up to this point.
We actually have good numbers.
I'm really impressed.
Aside from what we have on Zoom, which is 17, we also have 20. And the last time I checked, it went down to 16, but we have up to 20 on YouTube.
On YouTube. So all right.
That is still impressive. So
okay, guys.
And I know some people watch the YouTube like later on.
Yeah. So that's good. All right, so we're still with you. We point out like 6 countermeasures, and they are strictly from experience. So we just don't want to just come and bore you with text and go. So this is what we think should be the current day countermeasure. So first of all, you need to fix the human OS. Of course, we're moving from where you ordinarily say train your users, because I did some work recently, and I'm trying to write a paper on why training alone is not enough. So it's actually around the concept of what I call user empowerment. And in this case, you're looking at building a module of user empowerment that includes a start of creation of awareness, the training, education, and then building of capacity, because all these things, they vary. But that's what we see that's what should encapsulate the new way of trying to bring your users up to speed. So we think that you should move from what you call training to move to what we are terming as user empowerment, to cover some of these things. And you need to have a roadmap for it. I mean, awareness can point to some things. Training would actually build people up to a level. Education will actually get people qualified for what they study, and capacity building is where you actually pass on long-term knowledge of your environment, your business, your processes, and of course the industry threat intelligence. Just have in mind that whilst we speak about the fact that it's the weakest link, it's also your last line of defense. So it's not okay for us just to say, oh, the humans are just the weakest link. It's okay for red teamers, because yes, of course, they're going to come from that angle. They are interested in the weakest link. But in a solution environment, you should know that that's your last line of defense, and it needs equal investment as you would have put into any other thing. Also, reduction of the attack surface. So why are we talking about this? So most of the time that we speak about reducing attack surface, all we've heard about is, oh, put this at the perimeter, basically defense in the layered defense. But here, the reduction of the attack surface, we are looking at process enforcement, because sometimes it's through your process gaps and your technology insecurity that makes AETs more successful. So the idea here is all the processes you have in place and you are enforcing them, from segregation, from principle of least privilege, from separation of duties, and from need to know. These are things that we think that we are actually in a new age of cybersecurity, where process enforcement would help rather reduce the attack gap or the attack impact. I'll give you an example on just segregation. If you do a proper VLAN, proper traffic segregation, proper traffic containment, then what happens is, even if an AET compromises an environment, it's actually secluded. It is contained within that particular segregated space of your network. And of course, that depends on what other layers are there for pivoting and going out of that space. So again, this is how we think security people should be thinking about reducing the attack surface. The traditional reduction of the attack surface, where your investment is purely into buying new technology and putting them on the layers, should move into whether you're actually getting value out of process enforcement, right? Because once you are enforcing some of these processes, and process here covers your policies and everything, once some of these things are being enforced properly, then we are so sure that AETs would, even when they are successful, will have very limited space to work. Someone with a need to know account, someone with the principle of least privilege account, even when it's compromised, is actually limited to what they can access. And that, like I said, we are not taking away the attack. We say we are reducing the impact of the attack. And the next part, before we look at the other set, which I think I should allow Patrick to deal with, would be to inject user behavior analytics into your security program. Knowledge-based security program is the thing. That's the tradition. That's what we came to meet. That's the convention. It is fine. You can't take it away, because a lot of the things that we deal with in our environment is all knowledge-based. But we think that behavioral analytics is important, and EDRs, SIMs, MDRs, which cannot guarantee you some very good level of user behavior analytics, definitely it's not going to help you when it comes to AETs. And APTs are developed on AETs. Advanced persistent threats are developed on advanced evasive techniques. It's just that the difference there is, once we evade and get into the network, we stay in for a long time. That's where the persistency comes in. So if you can deal with AETs today and reduce it at the barest minimum, you're almost near not able to deal with APTs, where state actors are actually behind it with large funding and the rest. So we think that user behavioral analytics is the new thing. So definitely machine learning, AI, like I said, would definitely be important for blue teamers as much as it's going to be important. Life is not easy. Sorry, someone said something? Patrick, could do the last three and then we bounce. Visibility, cyber threat intelligence.
Yes, I think Yes, I think I've hit on visibility,
Yeah.
where you have to understand your what do you call it, your security implementation to understand their capabilities, as in what they can detect and prevent at the same time, and what they can detect and not also prevent. With the demo that I did, when it comes to Sophos, with the first one, Sophos is able to see it and report it, but it's not able to prevent it, you see. So yes, so that's the yes. And when it comes to investing in cyber threat intelligence, it's very, very important. One example is I don't know if you've heard about the alien vote OTX, which is very yeah. So the tool that I built, there's the EDR that we built. It's one of the things that it leverages on is the what they call it, the alien vote OTS. And trust me, each and every day they keep bringing these indicators of compromise for various threat actors and various malware and ransomwares that keeps coming. So it's very good that you invest in some of these things to be able to help strengthen or fortify your security. And the next thing is to be ready to when alarm goes off, and then incident response plan. And these are things that must be proactive. I always say that when it comes to incident response, it is not just about responding to incident, but it's also about having put together what we call the business continuity plan. For example, if your infrastructure is hit with a ransomware, what can you do to ensure that business is still continuing whilst you try to resolve it? Because if you have to resolve cases whilst business has come to a halt, you have to understand there's also a downtime, which means that your company is also losing money. But if there's a business continuity, of course, so if your company is hit but still business is going on, then I think you, the blue team, are somehow you are at peace from your managers, because somehow business is still going on whilst you try to resolve this. So business continuity plan in terms of incident responses is a must that every blue teamer should adhere to. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Champ. Sorry, Kofi.
Yeah, so I'm monitoring their YouTube channel, and Hismat Kunwa had a question about how do you execute the tool in a red team operation? I don't know if Kismat is still online, but if Patrick or Desmond, you guys want to share a bit light on that. I mean, I know you did a demo, but maybe he wants to, or she wants to know, how do you get the tool do you run this from a standalone system to generate your executable, or do you run the executable on actual target?
On a compromised target?
Yeah, on a compromised target.
No, so this tool is not run on the compromised targets.
Yeah.
That's when you want to come in.
I was going to say that if you're going to run on a compromise, I like process analysis. If you're going to run on a compromised target, then you don't need a tool. You already have a compromised box. You can do other things to move on from there. So my thought process would be that you're doing these from a system that allows you to create a compromise. But then, Patrick, you can come in.
Yeah, so this tool is just created on your own environment. It is the end product of the tool that is shipped to the compromised machine, all right, so that you can have the connection to your C2. And you see, and this tool works everywhere, whether you are using Cobalt Strike, whether you are using Metasploit, and for us, we have our own C2 that we use, because we feel most of the C2s already have their signatures over there. Yeah, but the tool has the ability to pick any payload from any C2, and still you'll be able to get a call back to that particular C2.
Makes sense.
All right. I hope this answered the person. So
I mean, you mentioned ransomware earlier, and then something just came to mind. I had a privilege of going to the Data Connectors conference in Baltimore. And these guys, I've forgotten the name, but they came through and they have what they call their ransomware insurance. You know, they actually build a tool. The name is deceptive, as in you would think that it has to just do with business insurance, right? but it's actually a technical tool where they're trying to like do a replica of your data storage, and then when you are hit by a ransomware, they guarantee you like replication within some minutes. I have to look at the technical documents all over again, but I just want to say that people are looking at the proactive side of dealing with these issues, you know, and so that's it. And again, still on ransomware, there's also a program ongoing where they are looking for analysts on the dark web, and also dark web practitioners who are open to join the security intelligence in terms of CTIs to help them to model TTPs, because they believe it's like using the informant approach, right? Because they believe that these people know what is coming out. So if we can get them to release some of these things, then we can build into it. I have a reservation of whether that's even going to be successful, because once a thief, always a thief. But those are things I've seen, and I thought that I should share with you. Before your questions, big shout outs to people I look up to when I was putting this together. Of course, I know Patrick also have some people he wants to, but shout outs to the APSIS threat research group, specifically Kartik Kumar, for that engineering done on Stellarium. I don't think I would have done a better job without the work that they did. And of course, David Kennedy, we always look up to them. So thanks for joining. Patrick, any shout outs from you?
Yeah. There's a guy called Evans. Yeah, I think he's from Australia. Yeah. So I met him on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
He's what do you call it? This Red Tool emulator kind of guy. So shout out to that guy. Yeah.
All right, Kofi. That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Ready for questions.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining. This has been a huge success, and hopefully we'll get to do a lot of these in the upcoming times.
Okay. If you have any questions, this is your